and welcome to today's lesson on variation and genes. So let's start by having a look at these two dogs. I'd like you to pause the video and write a list of the similarities and a list of the differences that you can see between these two beautiful pups. Okay, so for similarities, you could have got, they both have 4 legs, they both have a tail, they both have a long snout, they both have floppy ears, anything like that for similarities. For differences, you might have got that they have different coat colours. You might have said that the one on the right has straight hair, whereas the one on the left has curly hair. You might have said that they are different breeds of dog. Anything like that is an acceptable similarity, okay? Anything you can see from the picture. So what we're going to look at today is the fact that even though they're both dogs, they're both the same species, there's variation between them, and we're going to look at why that is. So these dogs belong to the same species, just as all humans belong to the same species. However, there are lots of differences between members of the same species, as we saw between the poodle and the Labrador, and we call those differences variation. So we know already that there are 2 factors causing variation: the characteristics you inherit from your parents and the environment you live in. Some characteristics can be inherited and environmental, for example, height. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is I would like you to sort these different characteristics that are at the bottom of the screen into whether they are genetic, environmental, or a combination of the 2. Pause the video while you do that. And you should have got, for genetic variation, blood group, natural hair colour and eye colour. For environmental variation, tattoo, hair length, language spoken and piercing. And for both, weight, skin colour, intelligence and height. Okay, tick them if you got them right. Okay, so how do we inherit characteristics? In every single cell in our body there is a nucleus, and within that nucleus there are these little tiny things called chromosomes. And chromosomes are made up of a chemical called DNA, which is short for deoxyribose nucleic acid. And on those strands of DNA, which are coiled up really tight to make the chromosomes, there are sections of DNA that are called genes, and each gene codes for a different characteristic. Okay, so one gene codes for one different characteristic, but sometimes you might need more than one gene to make up what codes for an entire characteristic. Okay, so you've got a cell, nucleus inside that, chromosomes inside that, they're made of DNA, and they're broken up into different genes. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to have a look at the textbook page I've put up on front and have a go at summary question number 1 on that. So pause the video, have a go at summary question number 1, and then we will go through the answers in a minute. Okay, so you should have got genetic material in the body is stored in the nucleus of a cell. DNA is the name of the chemical that contains the instructions needed to make an organism. Chromosomes are made of long strands of DNA, and the sections of DNA that hold the information for a characteristic are called genes. So if you got all of those right, give yourself a smiley face, correct them if you got them wrong. And then we're going to have a closer look at our chromosomes. So we inherit characteristics on our chromosomes in the form of genes. In our body, we've got in each cell in our body, we've got 23 pairs of chromosomes. That means we've got 46 chromosomes all together. And we get one half of those from our mother and the other half from our father. Okay, so we get 23 chromosomes from our mother and 23 chromosomes from our father, which makes a total of 46. And those are the same in every cell in our body. Okay, so if we have a look at an egg and a sperm, they are the only cells in the body to have 23 chromosomes. So they have one copy of each pair. So they will have half of the amount of DNA that any other cell is, and when they come together, that creates the 23 pairs and 46 chromosomes, so you get a full set of DNA. If your egg and sperm didn't have half the amount of normal body cells, that would mean that the offspring would have twice as much DNA as they needed, and that could mean all kinds of problems for that embryo. Okay, here's another diagram showing that. So the mother produces the egg, the father produces the sperm. Each of the egg and sperm have 23 chromosomes in. When they fertilise together, that leaves a fertilised embryo. A fertilised egg has 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs, and that goes on to divide into an embryo with the same number. Okay, so out of your 46 chromosomes, 22 of the pairs are identical, but the 23rd pair doesn't always match, and those are what we call the sex chromosomes, and they determine whether you're male or female. Okay, if you are a girl, then you are going to have 2 identical X chromosomes. Okay, whereas boys have 1 X chromosome and a shorter Y chromosome, and that's what determines whether you're male or female. So I've got 2 X chromosomes, you guys have got an X and a Y. Why don't we look identical to our parents? Okay, so different forms of the gene are called alleles. There is a gene that codes for brown hair and a gene that codes for blonde hair. Those are different alleles of the same gene. Some genes are always going to be expressed, and we call those dominant genes. So, for example, freckles is a dominant characteristic. You only need 1 copy of that gene in order to have freckles. So you could inherit it from your mother or your father. They don't both need to have the freckles gene. A weaker gene, like the one for no freckles, is called a recessive gene. You need 2 copies of that gene in order to show that characteristic. So you need to have a no freckles gene from your mum and a no freckles gene from your dad. Now it might be that one of your parents has freckles, but you don't, because they've also got a copy of the gene that is for the no freckles. Okay, here's some more characteristics that are dominant and recessive. So dark wavy hair, brown eyes, 3 earlobes, freckles, ability to roll tongue, projecting chin and straight nose are all dominant, whereas blonde hair, straight hair, blue eyes, lobed earlobes, upturned nose, inability to roll tongue, receding chin and no freckles are all recessive characteristics. Okay, so you need 2 copies of the genes for those in order to develop those features. We can represent genes using letters, and we're going to look a bit more in the future at how that works. So the dominant gene is always represented with a capital letter, and the recessive gene is always represented with a lowercase letter. And we've got the example there for eye colour. What I'd like you to do, I've put up some questions for you to do on Fronter. Have a go at those and submit them to me, and good luck.